Good evening, I'm Nima Rajan, and this is Forum Daily for Friday, March 25th. Tonight, we begin with the Fridays for Future movement that saw dozens of demonstrations across the country and the world to protest against climate change. The protests are part of the Fridays for Future movement inspired by Swedish activist Greta Thunberg. A march and rally were held in Ottawa. This while Montreal organizers are planning what they describe as a teach-in on decolonization and Indigenous sovereignty. Dozens of other events are planned in cities across Canada, including Quebec City, Calgary, and Vancouver. They are using the hashtag #PeopleNotProfit. Well, this comes as Canada's Natural Resources Minister says oil and gas producers here can hike output by the equivalent of 300,000 barrels a day by the end of the year. Jonathan Wilkinson says 2/3 of that is oil and the rest is natural gas, adding it should not lead to an overall increase in greenhouse gas emissions. This would also help displace Russian fossil fuels. Europe relies on Russia for about 1/4 of its oil supply and 40% of its gas. What Canada can offer would replace less than 5% of Europe's gas imports from Russia and less than 10% of its Russian oil imports. Meanwhile, the federal environment minister says a proposed oil project off the coast of Newfoundland won't solve Europe's energy shortfalls in the short term. Stephen Guilbeault was speaking yesterday at a Senate hearing about the war in Ukraine and helping Europeans reduce their dependence on Russian oil and gas. He says Equinor's Bay du Nord offshore project isn't a solution as it wouldn't produce oil until at least 2028. The Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission has approved Rogers Communications' acquisition of Shaw Communications Broadcasting Services. But it is subject to some conditions and modifications. The CRTC says Rogers must contribute $27.2 million to various initiatives and funds. This is 5 times what the company had originally proposed. Rogers must also report annually on its commitments to increase its support for local news and distribute at least 45 independent English and French language services on each of its cable and satellite services. PEI spuds are finally making a comeback in the U.S. The United States is easing its lockdown on Prince Edward Island potatoes after reaching an understanding with Ottawa. It comes 4 months after concerns about a soil-borne fungus first blocked one of the province's most famous exports from its single most important market. Growers report the U.S. ban on their spuds has cost them $50 million in lost revenue. Potato wart fungus is otherwise harmless as a disease that disfigures potatoes and reduces crop yields. All right, well, this comes as another major Canadian export is facing rebuttal. A potential clash over hormone-treated Canadian beef is emerging as a sticking point as free trade talks between Canada and Britain start. UK International Trade Secretary Anne-Marie Trevelyan joined her Canadian counterpart Mary Ng in Ottawa yesterday to announce the formal launch of talks. Ms. Trevelyan says her government will not compromise on allowing hormone-treated Canadian beef into Britain. Minister Ng said the quality of Canadian beef and its producers is second to none. All right, turning to a new survey by staffing firm Robert Half, which finds while employers may want their workers back in the office after the pandemic, many employees may feel very differently. The poll found the majority of companies in Canada and the U.S. want teams back on site full-time now that COVID-19 restrictions are easing. However, an equal number of respondents currently working from home say if their boss demanded they return to office full-time, they would look for new jobs that offer remote options. The Catholic Church takes a big step toward reconciliation this weekend in the Vatican as Pope Francis prepares to meet with Métis, Inuit, and First Nations delegates. Métis National Council President Cassidy Caron says the institution of the church must rebuild and repair the relationship with Indigenous peoples. Mitch Case is a historian and regional councillor with Métis Nation Ontario, and he says many Métis are Catholic, but they feel the church betrayed them during land disputes and the Red River resistance. Toronto's Hospital for Sick Children continues to treat pediatric cancer patients from Ukraine. It says 3 more Ukrainian patients have arrived for treatment. Sick Kids is now caring for a total of 5 cancer patients from Ukraine. All right, well, despite falling 1-0 to Costa Rica last night and failing to secure a World Cup berth, Canadian men's soccer coach John Herdman remains confident that his team will get the job done. Canada will have another shot to book a ticket to Qatar 2022 on Sunday at BMO Field in Toronto when it hosts Jamaica. Forum Daily's Energy Update with Dan McTeague from GasWizard.ca coming up next after the break, so stay with us. We'll be right back here on Forum Daily. Welcome back. Up next, we have Forum Daily's regular energy update with Dan McTeague. He is the senior petroleum analyst at GasWizard.ca. Take it away, Dan.
Well, thank you very much for that, Nima. And boy, what a week, what a day. The oil and energy sector is moving literally by the minute with geopolitical tensions, not just Russia and Ukraine, not just the divestment strategies by Wall Street and many other firms around the world to take away money rather short-sightedly in the past from production of oil. But we now see, of course, what's happening in Saudi Arabia, yet another attack between the Houthi rebels to the south in Yemen on the kingdom. Obviously, major geopolitical implications, not just for oil, but also for a Biden administration that seems to be going on bended knee to try to get more oil, whether that be from Iran or Saudi Arabia. This is obviously going to lead and is important of a much more expensive summer as we head towards this time. Let me put this in perspective. Next week, Canada will start to move towards not only an increase in carbon taxes in the provinces like Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland. So that'll add another 2.5 cents a litre to the price of gasoline. We're also shifting to the summer blends of gasoline. That's a thing, and it's there is a cost for refineries that they're going to pass on. So look for an average increase across the country of about 7 cents a litre over the next couple of weeks. Doesn't really matter where the markets are going. The fact that oil is at $113 a barrel, up from $109 this morning, that Brent oil is up pushing again towards 120, suggests that even before we leave the winter oil period, the new specs on gasoline and oil for summer demand, it looks like it's going to shoot through the roof. Again, long-term forecasts are very difficult, but I see nothing here in the cards that would suggest prices are going to go down. So Vancouver will continue to remain in the $1.90 to $2 range. Alberta, with its move to suspend part of its tax on gasoline, could be looking at a net decrease of about 5 cents a litre. It should be 10, but prices are rising as a result of oil. Saskatchewan, pretty much a hold for this next week ahead. Same for Manitoba. Ontario is probably looking at about a 5 cent increase starting Wednesday of next week. We'll probably get a decrease tomorrow, Saturday, in Ontario, 3 cents a litre, but probably up by as much as 3 cents for Sunday, something one wouldn't have expected just a couple of hours ago. Quebec can continue, even though they're getting $500 checks for inflation. They can continue to see prices move up next week about 5 cents a litre. For the Maritimes, consider the gas prices there will probably move up between 4 and 6 cents a litre. The big issue, though, Nima, is the fact that diesel prices are going through the roof. There just isn't enough being produced. It is the workhorse of the entire global economy. No, it's not windmills, and no, it's not electric vehicles. It is, in fact, diesel, and we are seeing a significant and very serious shortage of that product. Not just diesel, which, according to the United States Department of Energy's weekly petroleum report, has diesel inventories down to multi-year levels, 18% below the 5-year average. Significant, because you're going to need more diesel as the economy starts to pick up post-COVID. You're also looking at propane, things that the farmers need and others used for tow motors and manufacturing and things like that. 24% below the average of the past 5 years. What we're looking at here is an energy super bubble, and it's not going to end in 2022. It's not going to end in 2023. It's going to go on for quite some time. Most countries get this. Most countries are trying to find ways to help the impact, because they know that when you lose energy security, when energy prices start going through the roof, it affects pretty much everything else. Most countries get this, but not Canada. We have a prime minister and a cabinet and a new Democratic Party that have formed an alliance to ensure that your price and my price for just about everything continues to skyrocket. This inflationary cycle, though, will have one effect: hurting consumers, eroding our purchasing power. and ultimately in 2025, perhaps suggesting that there is a door waiting for New Democrats and Liberals once the public has an opportunity to give its opinion. In the short term, though, expect higher prices for the next week. And I would say that it's a safe bet that if you think $1.70 is a lot for gasoline today in Eastern Canada, $1.65 is a lot in Western Canada, excluding British Columbia, you may want to fill up those extra jerry cans. You're going to need them. As for diesel, we're going to need some strong policies from government to ensure that it gets there so it doesn't cripple what's left of a struggling economy at a time in which we're trying to come out of a recession, or at least a COVID induced recession. Nima, that's it. I look forward to talking to you next week, and gas up today.
A lot of developments this week, Dan. Thanks for that. That was Dan McTeague from gaswizard.ca. He is also the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy. All right, up next, our cryptocurrency and digital asset update with Catherine Murray, host of The Buck Stops Here. Welcome back. Up now, Forum Daily's cryptocurrency and digital asset update with Catherine Murray. She's the host of The Buck Stops Here, and she joins us now. Take it away, Catherine.
Thanks, Nima. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your weekly crypto and digital asset update. I am Catherine Murray. Let's take a look at the quick stats here. Cryptocurrencies have been trading mostly higher today, with Ether actually leading the way, up by about 5%. Bitcoin approaching that $45,000 level, actually hitting a 3-week high and breaking out of its recent trading range. Importantly as well, just to put things in perspective, as we always want to do, Bitcoin actually hit its highest level back in October of 2021 at 69,000. I do want to, however, point out that volumes are actually well below the high. So that's important to point out as well. Cardano, that's actually the biggest outperformer right now, up by about 14%. That's after Coinbase added the asset to its staking service. Bottom line, we have seen some strength and stability in cryptocurrencies over the past 2 weeks. Away from that, right now, we're seeing cryptocurrencies valued at $1.8 trillion. Bitcoin, of course, the largest market cap share of that, 42%, and Ether at about 18%. Now, with higher oil and gas prices being felt around the world, and of course, Europe's reliance on Russian oil and gas, making Russian sanctions much more complicated, I thought I'd start with energy companies related to crypto. If you recall, back in January, we did discuss ConocoPhillips piloting a project that involves selling flared gas to Bitcoin miners in the Bakken. To put some context around all of this and what it exactly means, during extraction, oil and nat gas extraction, a certain amount of gas is released into the air, known as gas flaring. ExxonMobil actually piloted the project first back in January of 2021 and apparently is expanding beyond the Bakken. So basically, this allows Bitcoin companies to use flared methane from nat gas operations to mine Bitcoin. And recall, of course, one of the big pushbacks from the environmental perspective is the amount of energy it takes to mine Bitcoins. So interesting to note that. Last week, we also discussed the UK government reminding Bitcoin companies that they must comply with the Russian sanctions. Well, interestingly, Russia's Congressional Energy Committee said that they would accept Bitcoin for natural resource exports. The Washington Post has a story with the title, "Will Russians Use Crypto to Bust Sanctions?" They point out that Russia's exports were about $500 billion last year, and that illicit crypto activity is only $14 billion, meaning that it would be difficult to do. The volume just wouldn't be able to capture that $500 billion mark. Not that it would be the full 500, but that there is in fact room for smaller scale evasion. Well, we've mentioned this a couple of weeks ago that the Russia-Ukraine war is the first crypto war. Well, adding to that, BlackRock's CEO, Larry Fink, in a letter to shareholders says that the Russia-Ukraine crisis could accelerate digital currencies. He said that a global digital payment system could enhance the settlement of international transactions while reducing the risk of money laundering and corruption. Now, do note, though, that about a year ago, Larry Fink, and his company is the largest asset manager in the world, said that it was too early to determine if cryptocurrencies were speculative or a speculative trading tool. Now, more firms are getting involved in the crypto space. Goldman Sachs, for one, is going to be offering the over-the-counter crypto options trading. And another investment bank, Cowen & Co., is offering crypto as well. So few more investment banks getting in on the move here. On the regulatory front, Australia is planning to regulate cryptocurrencies with a focus on crypto taxation, investor protection, and regulation of digital banks and exchanges. Also, if you recall, El Salvador has really been leading the charge here in cryptocurrencies. And Binance, one of the companies within this space, is going to be meeting with the government to discuss the country's adoption of BTC as a legal tender. Meanwhile, California-based crypto lending firm Figure Technologies, listen to this, announced that they are going to be offering crypto-backed mortgage lending products next month. And here's the really interesting aspect. The lender intends to offer up 100% loan-to-value mortgages on BTC and Ether used as collateral, Bitcoin and Ether used as collateral. Wow. I'll leave you with this. If you're an optimist, or a crypto optimist or not. There's an interesting article on New York Times that might help you figure that out. Obviously, this lending firm is a major crypto optimist because they're going to do 100% loan to value. They've got to believe that that's going a lot higher from here. Nima, I'll leave it there. Back to you.
Always a lot to unpack, Catherine. Thanks for that. That was Catherine Murray, host of The Buck Stops Here. Stay with us. After the break, more news from around the world, of course, as we look at the situation in Ukraine and other international headlines. Stay tuned on Forum Daily. Ukrainian authorities in the besieged ruins of Mariupol say about 300 people have died last week when a Russian airstrike blew up a theater where hundreds of civilians were sheltering. The city government announced the death toll today in a post on its Telegram channel citing eyewitnesses. President Volodymyr Zelensky has called on Ukrainians to keep up their resistance to Russia's invading forces. Well, this comes as the deputy head of Russia's military general staff says 1,351 Russian soldiers have died in Ukraine. Colonel General Sergei Rudskoy also says more than 3,800 have been wounded. NATO estimated on Wednesday that as many as 15,000 Russian soldiers had been killed in 4 weeks of the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Pope Francis is presiding over a special prayer for peace in Ukraine that dates back to a century-old prophecy about peace and Russia. Meanwhile, the United States and the European Union have announced a new partnership to reduce the continent's reliance on Russian energy. The White House is billing it as the start of a years-long effort to further isolate Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden is lobbying to maintain unity among allies and support Ukraine's defense. Ursula von der Leyen, head of the European Union's executive arm, says it is important for Europe to shift away from Russia and toward trustworthy, friendly, and reliable energy suppliers. Oil prices are further impacted by attacks on Saudi Arabian oil facilities. Online videos show a raging fire at an oil depot in the city of Jeddah ahead of a Formula One race there. Yemen's Houthi rebels claim it was an attack by its fighters in one of its highest-profile attacks yet. The videos on Friday came as practice racing continued, with a large black smoke cloud seen in the distance by journalists who are covering the F1 practice. The case, or rather the cause of the blaze, was not immediately known. Saudi state TV acknowledged a hostile operation targeting the depot without elaborating. However, it comes days after a similar attack on the North Jeddah bulk plant oil depot. Trouble is also brewing in the east. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has revived a nuclear brinkmanship aimed at pressuring the U.S. to accept his country as a nuclear power and remove crippling sanctions. Yesterday's launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile high into space marked the North's most provocative weapons demonstration since U.S. President Joe Biden took office. The launch is worrying because the missile could be armed with nuclear bombs that can threaten Washington, New York, and much of the rest of the world. Well, Chinese and Indian officials are taking steps to de-escalate a tense face-off and occasional clashes along their disputed border. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has met with his Indian counterpart and the National Security Advisor. This was to expedite the disengagement of thousands of Indian and Chinese forces. A fierce brawl erupted in June 2020. It left 20 Indian soldiers dead. China claims it lost 4 troops in the clash. India's External Affairs Minister says the situation is a work in progress. A rise in COVID-19 infections from the BA.2 variant has U.S. health experts using a variety of methods to monitor for a new wave. Ji-Young Lee, an environmental health professor or health sciences professor at Ohio State University, says a good way to detect new cases is by testing wastewater. The World Health Organization this week reported the number of new coronavirus cases has increased 2 weeks in a row globally. The WHO says that's likely because COVID-19 prevention measures have been halted in numerous countries and because BA.2 spreads more easily. Afghanistan's recent move to deny girls education beyond grade 6 has female foreign ministers from 16 countries saying they are deeply disappointed. They are calling on the Taliban to reverse their decision. Afghanistan's Taliban rulers this week unexpectedly decided against reopening schools to girls beyond the 6th grade. This means they have gone back on a promise and are opting to appease their hardline base, all at the expense of further alienating the international community. The foreign minister's statement said access to education is a human right to which every girl and woman is entitled to. Thousands of people lined the streets in central Athens on Friday as fighter jets flew overhead and tanks rolled down the street outside Parliament during Greece's Independence Day parade. This was the first to be open to public spectators in 2 years as coronavirus restrictions ease. The parade marks the March 25, 1821 start of Greece's revolt against the Ottoman Empire. All right, I'm Nima Rajan, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. Remember, for more news on demand, you could always visit our website, thenewsforum.ca, or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Take care, Canada. We'll see you next time on Forum Daily News.